The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
All right, joining us now with more reaction is the Blockchain Association's Director of Government Relations, Ron Hammond. Ron, great to have you on the show. So as U.S. House Republicans struggle to find a leader, how will the outcome impact this year's crypto agenda in Washington?
Well, there's a lot that can happen, and there's a lot of names that are also being thrown out there to replace McCarthy if he were to be the person not nominated for Speaker, which, as each day goes by, it seems more and more likely we're going to have someone else besides Kevin McCarthy. Lawrence mentioned Steve Scalise. That's the go-to next person, it seems like. But there are also other names thrown out there, like Patrick McHenry and Tom Emmer, and several others in the senior leadership of the Republican conference. So, at least in my experience, when I was a House staffer, Kevin McCarthy was actually pretty pro-crypto and actually hosted several sit-down meetings with members of Congress and staff on all things Crypto 101, Blockchain 101, and that was back in 2018, 2017. So he's been really passionate about this issue, and I think arguably of all the Republicans besides Patrick McHenry in the running right now, he is the most pro-crypto, or at least would be moving legislation. But let's not forget, there's also the Democrat Senate, and anything that comes out of the Republican House, if it does come out of the Republican House, has a very slim chance of moving in the Senate unless it has significant bipartisan support. And right now, it doesn't seem like, at least in crypto, we have the senior Democrats on board with moving legislation forward that either McHenry or McCarthy or whoever would put past the House.
So Democrats have been delivering votes for incoming Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. Do you know, are we aware of what his position on crypto is?
I actually do not. I know a lot in this conference, especially on the younger Democrat side, do skew to be more pro-crypto. They're a lot more open to the technology. And I think that's what we're seeing in Congress right now is it's not a Republican or Democrat situation. It's definitely more along the lines of age. We've seen a lot more younger members of Congress, like Richie Torres, who is a very big progressive from the Bronx area, actually really gravitate and lead on all things crypto and DeFi especially, and actually has been pretty critical of the SEC, which is run currently by a Democrat, Gary Gensler. And so I think, I would have to speculate here. I think he'd be more on the pro side as we've seen that trend continue, but we do not know at the moment.
So, Ron, look, let's be honest here. The odds of Kevin McCarthy becoming Speaker keep dwindling every time he does a vote. And we're seeing that. The numbers keep going down for him. I'm going to throw out Steve Scalise, as I mentioned before. It's the most logical choice, right? What do we know about Steve Scalise's views on crypto and whether or not that would have any impact specifically on the House?
In my experience with Steve Scalise, he's been a really team player. So has Kevin McCarthy as well. But Steve Scalise really hasn't dived into these issues before. He's really been more in the leadership play. But I will say he used to sit on House Financial Services Committee, which Patrick McHenry is currently going to chair, it looks like. And so I think he will defer a lot to Patrick McHenry and his expertise, which I think that's going to be indicative of crypto legislation moving forward. So regardless of McHenry or Scalise or McCarthy, I think we're still going to see a lot of good deference to the leaders on crypto. And let's not forget, too, in senior leadership, we have Tom Emmer now. And Tom Emmer has said, I'm going to make this a priority, even though I won't be as involved in the actual legislation and writing of it. I'm going to make sure that crypto legislation gets through the House floor. And I think that's a really important thing to notice is that Emmer is a really important character and player in this. And someone we should watch, even while the speaker drama is going on. We have other folks in the ranks who can really move legislation forward. That is bipartisan. And that's what it has to be to have any shot of moving in the Senate.
What are your thoughts on, I'm sure it's not on their minds right now, but when we do see crypto legislation, what will be the first pieces off to bat?
I would say it was going to be stable coins, but it looks like right now the House Financial Services Committee is pivoting towards more FTX and fact-finding, which is really important, I think, because we don't want Congress to have a knee-jerk reaction to all things FTX. There's still a lot of things that are going to be coming out in the bankruptcy process, as well as the subsequent hearings that Patrick McHenry is going to be having on FTX. And I think that's going to lead to legislative proposals. I think we're going to see some legislation return, again, along the lines of stablecoins. But I think also market structure, we're going to see some return of legislation as well. And then probably some other topics that we haven't really dived into yet. But what has the most chance of actually would actually be stablecoin legislation. I think that's going to be no Q3, Q4 situation as this FTX fallout still plays out, and members of Congress are trying to get to the bottom of what happened. And this plays to Gary Gensler's hand, though, and the other regulators. So we'll see if Congress really does take the reins in and also exercise oversight of these regulators.
Christine, before you go, I just want to ask, what specifically, what do you mean by market structure legislation? Can you just elaborate a little there?
It's been pretty high level in our conversations with staff who are writing it right now. These legislative drafts are still in the works, but right now we're seeing along a spot market regulation, and so some of that played out in the House and Senate Agriculture Committee. But also we're seeing the idea of what does it look like for proof of reserves, for example. We've also seen what does exchange regulation look like and registration, because they're having a huge issue, as we all know, with exchanges not registering with the SEC. And Gary Gensler hammering, saying that you have to do that, but exchanges saying we can't have the ability to comply at the moment. So these things are still in the works. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to have a Robinhood style hearing where we have several hearings on the FTX situation. And the final hearing usually is going to say, we have learned all these facts. Here is the legislation we think that's going to solve the FTX issue going forward. And that's going to include proposals that may be related to FTX directly, and most of the time probably just more crypto regulation as a whole. And many bills that we've seen, again, like the Lummis-Gillibrand bill, reemerging in some shape or form.
So, Ron, I noticed that you tweeted earlier this week, quote, one word to summarize how things are right now for the crypto industry on the Hill, bad. SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX have significantly set back the industry in DC. So I want to ask you a little more about what you meant by that. Is it that just there won't be an open mind in about crypto in DC, or there's just a higher degree of skepticism?
I'd say on both fronts, yes. And I think, I've been sitting with a lot more meetings with staffers and members of Congress since the FTX fallout, and it has gotten a lot more hostile. Even on the Republican side, we've seen a lot more skeptics come to the fruition and saying, you know what, I have listened to these meetings, or I've listened to these conversations for several months now or years, and I'm just not buying it. Actually, one of our biggest champions, Jake Auchincloss, delivered a really potent statement actually at the FTX hearing with John Ray, and said, the crypto industry needs to show me more use cases besides payments. I need to see the innovation that you guys have been promising for years, and I really want to believe you, but I haven't seen it yet. And so I think that's the, it's coming on us as the lobbying association, but also other players in this space to show those members of Congress that there is real use cases here, and there's real excitement and real, job creation and more. So it's been noticeably more hostile, though, and unfortunately, it's politically toxic almost. Besides Southwest, I think crypto is pretty much the other folks in the crosshairs right now. And large part of that is because of SPF, and the donations did not help, because now folks are running away from anything crypto or crypto donations solely because they are scared that this is the next FTX or the next SPF. When we all know that's probably not the case for most of these legitimate players. But unfortunately, they've been burned, and the negative media press, especially for a lot of these members, has been enough to say, I'm out. I'm just going to focus on something else besides crypto, because I dip my toes in, and I have a lot of bad media press in the local and national media.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Binance US has reportedly hired 3 DC firms to expand its PR and government relations efforts. Meanwhile, the SEC has filed limited objections to Binance US's $1 billion deal to buy up Voyager assets. I wonder if you could talk a bit about the advocacy presence from crypto firms in DC right now. Is it amped up, or is it taking a breather?
We saw a huge uptick in lobbyists, especially the past 2020. I'd say that we're seeing a little bit of that continue in 2023. But especially firms like Binance and Tether, those folks are not well liked even before the FTX fallout. They were in the crosshairs for pro-crypto members as well. And several times in hearings, we did hear Tether come up as a bad case for stablecoins. And we've heard Binance come up several times as well as a bad case for exchanges. And so hopefully we do have some good messaging when it comes to working together as a team. But at the same time, there's a lot of folks like Binance who are not complying, especially with a lot of the sanctions and anti-money laundering laws on the books right now. And that's really getting to members of Congress, and they're saying this needs to be either shut down or we need to crack down in some way, shape, or form. Meanwhile, though, there's a lot of support for U.S. companies like Coinbase, for example, who has built a really good team of over 6-7 people. And they've done a really good job working with a lot of the industry and getting good, sensible regulation moving forward. And I think we're going to see a lot more from teams like them, as well as a trade association like the Blockchain Association in 2023. My hope is, at least to folks in the industry, is that keep investing in DC, because this is the time. The next 2 years are going to be pivotal. Even though it's going to be really tough to get legislation done, there is going to be definitely a chance to do that, or even to have oversight of the regulators. And so this is a really important time. And it's good to see most firms understanding how important it is.